Welcome, everybody. It looks like my broadcast had not started yet, but we're excited to get everybody in here. We're going to get started in just a moment. If you need to get anything prepared before we get started, we'll go ahead and do so. We got Ben calling in from New Orleans. We got Chad up in beautiful Northeast, along with Sam as well in the Mid-Atlantic. I see lots of people joining us.
Maryland's in the South Bend, don't you know?
You are technically. Are you south of the Mason-Dixon line?
Technically, but I don't I don't think we get treated that way.
You guys ready for the big game tonight? It's gonna be a late one, but I will tell you this World Cup has been amazing, and I feel like America's doing okay hosting it, which has been nice to
Yeah.
see.
I think so too. I would love to see, can the United States play Great Britain on the 4th, you think?
I was just gonna. So I was reading about this. So I think what has to happen is I think if England finishes either, and maybe someone in the audience might have a better understanding, but I think if they finish either second or third in their group, it potentially could be USA versus England in Philadelphia on the 4th of July on a Saturday on our 250th anniversary.
Oh,
Um, I don't
ready
know if you can
for it.
tell, I'm a little excited about it. Just the thought of that, but
I'm gonna I'm
we
gonna
shall
be
see.
acting so American that day. It's gonna be
They,
awesome.
they would make documentaries about that day for sure.
Oh, they'll tell tales about that for generations to come.
Well, we're excited to get started for today. Thank you all very much for joining us. If I want to double check and make sure I have everything set up correctly here. Looks like I'm good. You guys see my screen again?
Sure
Looking
do.
good.
Wunderbar. My name is Ben Balsog. I'm our Senior Vice President of Business Development over at AdCellerant. Excited to have two of my good friends here for today. I'll have them introduce themselves in a second here, but we wanted to, throw together a nice little webinar that's definitely top of mind. A lot of people have been talking about it for the last, 3, 6, 9 months even, and there's a lot of things that we can do to really make sure that we're not just preparing ourselves, but making sure that our clients are positioning themselves in a really great way to take advantage of all the activity going on out there. If people need to be connected with, this is a great way to make sure that they're connecting with their potential, customers and things like that. So we're talking about the modern visibility and a blueprint, how data, trust, and performance can help with their digital footprints. I'm going to go ahead and start off with Chad Arango. Chad, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background. Chad's
Sure.
coming in from Yext.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned in the chat, it's great to have everybody here. Thank you for having me, guys. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Yeah, as Ben had mentioned, I'm Chad Arango. So I'm the global director of partnerships for a software company called Yext. I've actually been at the company for to be 12 years in November. I boomeranged after our IPO, but I was one of our first hires and have moved through, now leading it at a global level. We run about a $75 million a year business through our channel partners. And one of our most strongest and leading channel partners is, of course, AdCellerant, and that's why we're here. Um, Also built and led partnerships at a cloud-based phone company called AirCall, where we closed a Series C of 65 million. And then since I've been back at Yext, really focused on building out our solutions via API and MCPs to just better enable our partners who work with either small, medium-sized businesses and/or partners like AdCellerant that work with other agencies and media companies who then service the small business. How do we bring these much larger, enterprise-oriented products, down to the small and medium-sized, business, and that's really what we're focused on. Really, really excited to be here, and it's a privilege to work with such a great partner that is AdCellerant.
The feelings are mutual, Chad. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Also joining us today is my good friend Sam. Sam, introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Hello, hello. Yeah. I mean, the feeling is absolutely mutual. The partnership with Yext has definitely been a strong one, it's something that developed over a long period of time. I've been with AdCellerant for 8 years now, and really my role was it's developed over the years, but it's really to make sure that we kind of maintain and grow and develop the SEO solution and all the things that kind of fall under that. Earned and owned media is kind of the overall umbrella term for non-paid services. But I've had the opportunity to kind of develop and expand this program alongside Chad, and really prior to us finding Yext, we worked with a number of other technology vendors, and we have landed on Yext and have stuck with them ever since. And there is a reason for that. We do have a very thorough product and engineering evaluation, and Yext has always remained very high class in those topics for us. And really, again, it just comes to fruition here with these discussions and being able to inform you guys about what's going on with AI and search, and what you should be paying attention to, what you should maybe not be paying attention to, and see where it goes from here.
Well, I think that this is something that you should absolutely be paying attention to today. I know we've been really excited about the content that we put together for y'all. My name is Ben Balsog. I'm our Senior Vice President of Business Development here at AdCellerant. Just celebrated my 10-year anniversary. My goal and my role has been revolving around how to make sure we can bring the highest quality, Madison Avenue level digital advertising capabilities to Main Street businesses, to make them local, to make them regional, to make sure that these people are getting performance digital marketing without needing to pay for, an arm and a leg to achieve those types of things. So partnerships with people like Yext are wonderful ways that we're able to do so. A little bit about our agenda for today, y'all. And as a reminder, please feel free to go connect with myself, Sam, Chad over on LinkedIn. Follow us. We're always sharing some cool stuff, as well as follow AdCellerant and Yext on social media as well. It'll be a great way just to stay attuned to all the different things going on. We're really trying to make sure that we're not just thought leaders, but we're ahead of the industry and what is coming with these curves. So this is a great thing that we can talk about today. We want to first off give a big picture of where the search cycle is at in 2026. Where has it been just recently? Where do we see it kind of ending up at? We could talk about that at the end of the call today. And then also a few things about, where, and how search habits are actually changing and understanding what this zero click era is all about. I know a lot of people have heard that kind of buzzword around with Google, seemingly reducing search while, the data is showing otherwise. But digging into a little bit more of the structure and how you can make sure that your clients and yourselves, your brands are being discovered appropriately. And we want to talk about also the infrastructure that you guys need to make sure you're setting yourselves and your clients up for success. There is room for Q&A at the end, but we always want to make sure we can answer questions as effectively as possible. We do have a Q&A feature on the Zoom call for today. So if you guys have any questions on the spot, feel free to use that and we can absolutely field those while we go through here. To get started, I wanted to see if we can get a little bit of engagement from the audience, everybody that's joining us today. We talk about this a lot, but we'd love to know what you guys see from your perspective. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to start a poll in just a moment. And I would like to see, let's see here. Which poll one am I actually going to pull up here, Ben? How are the AI changes? Okay, Ben. Well, I'm going to ask the question anyways. How are local businesses currently responding to AI-driven changes in search? How are your clients doing that? And how are they, perceiving those things? Do you think they're leaning into it? Are they seeking more of these things? Do they feel skeptical about some of these things? Are they feeling overwhelmed? Or are they focused on what's worked in 2024 and 2025 and expecting that they can rinse and repeat what they've already done? While you guys are thinking about that, I'd like to see if Sam and Chad can give us a little bit of their perspective on it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to give it a stab. I mean, I feel like it runs the gamut, but most of the people that I've spoken to are honestly somewhere between A and D. And I think Chad might have a different opinion on this, but really it seems like there is aspects of overwhelmed, but they're leaning into it as a result. They're kind of saying this is something that I have to do. In some cases, almost to their own fault. Like I think that we have to kind of recognize when it's relevant to show up in ChatGPT and when it's not, right? And it's almost like you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. With others, I've had many conversations where people are kind of like, well, let's not deviate too far from last year, right? 2024, 2025, and kind of see where the dust settles, so to speak, just because it feels to them like we're kind of early in that bell curve of AI change.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's an opinion, but I also think the data speaks for itself. So the U.S. Chamber of Commerce found that almost 60% of small businesses actually are using generative AI. It's up by about 40% from last year. Um, and then 7% of AI using small businesses say limiting AI would actually hurt their growth, hurt their operations, or actually their bottom line. And then I was also reading through a Goldman Sachs research paper that 76% of small businesses, in fact, are using AI. But among those users, 93% say it had a positive impact, with 84% citing like increased efficiency and productivity. But here's where it gets interesting. And I think whether you're a small business, whether you're an agency, or whether you are working at a technology or SaaS company, is the implementing it so it drives trackable outcomes. At that same
Mhm.
Yeah.
Goldman Sachs study, only about 14% actually have AI integrated into their core capabilities. So I think that's where we are. Everyone knows it's cool. The adoption numbers are staggering, which we'll go into. But I think the real challenge is actually how is it measurably improving and growing my business? And I think that's what companies like Yext and leading companies like AdCellerant are trying to bring to the market.
Absolutely. And we see here that the poll that I actually finally got to go here, thank you, it shows that there's actually an overwhelming reply towards being overwhelmed. Local businesses are overwhelmed about it. And you know what? When I think about this, it is overwhelming. Business owners, they're experts in their business. They're experts in HVAC, they're experts in their restaurants, they're experts in, their business services, whatever they are. And AI is just another new thing, a new tool, and it can be overwhelming, it can be frustrating, and they look to people like us and like you, the folks that are on this call today, to become their experts, to be the ones that can kind of guide them through this because these are Himalayas of AI that are very confusing. They're very dangerous in some cases. So we need to be that, Sherpa in
Right.
order for them to really understand how to do this the best way. So I appreciate everybody's, feedback on those things.
Yeah. I mean, SMBs, they could probably be like, they don't want AI. They just want the outcomes, right? They want more leads. They want fewer
Yeah.
missed calls. They want better reviews. They want faster content, cleaner listings, more transactions. Um, and it's funny because with AI, you're kind of in a position where it was kind of like, oh, it'll help me do more work faster so I can spend more time doing other things. I think it's actually the opposite. I don't know about you guys, but I'm working more hours and harder than I ever had before. And I still think from an SMB perspective, very, very, very overwhelming. And hopefully, our talk and obviously some tools that we provide together, really just help simplify that and just show the business what the outcomes are of it.
Absolutely. So I wanted to pull up this really wordy slide at first, and we're going to break it down and make it a lot simpler for you guys. But I want to think about where the search landscape, like where it's breaking, how it's changed from where it's been to where it's going. Sam, I wouldn't mind,
Yeah.
or hope you don't mind if I ask you to kind of pull in a little bit and tell us a little bit about like what are these kind of core pieces that we're looking at right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing like that we have to kind of step back and take a look at is what I refer to as the search cycle. So I've been doing SEO for over 15 years now, and every 3 to 5ish years there is some kind of shift. Maybe that is a search engine changes the structure of its pages, like Google has done a number of times. Maybe the algorithms change. Maybe ad platforms enter the space. Maybe new social platforms enter the space, and there is always some kind of flustered response. And with that comes many tactics or technologies or kind of opportunistic talk tracks and such that just cause a lot of confusion and frankly is overwhelming. And I think that that's something that we have to kind of recognize because that is a cycle. And I would argue that we are in a version of that right now. Now, inevitably, it is quote unquote unprecedented. It is very new to us, we're going to talk a little bit about speed to adoption and these kinds of things. That is undeniable, right? Those variables are there. But inevitably, we have to be able to kind of cut through the noise of what is real and sustainable and what is not so real or underdeveloped. And this slide here kind of gives you some insight into some of the metrics kind of tied to that. We see things like traditional search dropping. We see things like zero clicks jumping. We see things like the volume of search occurring within Google versus in some of these other systems. We see it user adoption. Um, there is a lot to kind of absorb, and I would the main kind of caveat that I put towards all of it is again this data and this version of search is very much in its infancy, and I would say too that a lot of the mechanisms in place that worked previously still reside. However, we can't kind of deny that again that speed component.
Sure. I mean,
Absolutely.
I looked this morning just to refresh some of the query data, even since just a few days ago when we put this deck together, and you even look at Perplexity now crossing into over a billion queries, per month. So
Yeah.
it is definitely exploding. One thing I would add is, we actually did a study at Yext across about 3,000 businesses to take a look at. I'm sure a lot of the marketers here on this call, over the past, 18 months, you've had that, your clients calling you, why are my website visits down, or why is my website impressions, down? And we have seen that. We've seen it anywhere from 8%, down to almost 30% of impressions for businesses' websites, from year over year. But one thing that is really interesting on this data study is that the actions that were occurring on their Google business profiles, because we also can track that as well, that maintained the same. So it just kind of shows that it's not necessarily we're moving away from traditional search like we did. Google's been the search engine of choice for the last 20 years. It's just that we're searching in more places, and we're kind of moving back and forth. So we're going to AI systems today to maybe understand or do brand discovery, or from a local perspective, find the best taco spot in downtown Red Bank. But we're still seeing pretty good trends, and things are shifting there. You saw kind of like Shopify's kind of leverage with AI, where like the checkout experience is actually happening. I don't know if you also saw like Amazon blocked ChatGPT from like 600, I think, million products that to crawl into their system. So Amazon is definitely trying to hold on pretty tight. But we're still seeing the, book that appointment or call the business or drive to it or order from their restaurant or make a reservation. We're still seeing us as consumers still kind of going back to Google to do those, intent actions, if you will. But again, really important to Sam's point that the queries and the volume is absolutely growing. Because the conversational aspect of interacting with an LLM versus like a traditional search engine, I think is much different.
I love hearing all these things, and it definitely resonates really, really well. I probably read more books in myself in the last 3 years than I have in the 10 years before that,
Yeah.
mostly because they're books that I read to my 3-year-old son. And I'm more of a picture book kind of guy. I don't know about you guys, but
I was
let's
wondering what your reading level was these days. It's improved, right?
I'm definitely a picture book guy. So what I'd like for you two to do, and Chad, I'll hand it off to you first, is let's take this information, what we've just talked about, what we see here on the screen, and let's turn it into a picture and like what that actually means. So let's show people how this search is truly shifting.
Absolutely. And just real quick, I can't see any chats or anything that come in. So I'll leave that to you, Ben, if anything comes. But I do have a question for the audience too. So, one of the things that is so exciting about AI is the fastest adopted technology in history is, I think, one critical thing. As Ben and Sam, like I text, so I don't see every time we text, I don't see that, that ugly green bubble where it's like your one friend that doesn't have an iPhone. You're like, come on, man, get with it. But I know you guys both do. But like, have you ever switched to like another, like an Android or like a Samsung phone? Like, have you ever done that before?
Yeah, I
How,
did that. I did that a couple years ago. I got an Android. I probably had it for a month, and then I went back to an iPhone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, right? Because like setting up the phone, getting your apps all in order, understanding the operating system is it's a cognitive burden, and we as
yeah,
humans kind of like things really easy. And I think it's the proof of that is just in the numbers here. So if we look at this awesome slide, like you can see some of the legacy companies, in terms of how long it took them to reach that flagstone mile ship as a company of about 100 million users. So you can see like Netflix, even up to Facebook, taking from anywhere from a decade to a half a decade. Then we started to see Instagram and TikTok, really kind of really set the precedent and reset the expectations here. But I'd be curious if anyone wanted to ask, but like if you there's the surprise. How long, if anyone didn't see that quickly or wants to chat in, like how long do you think it took a ChatGPT to reach that 100 million mark? Any guesses? And if nothing comes
Use
through,
that,
we'll just jump to it.
yeah, use that Q&A feature if you want.
Open that up.
Who can guess it? How fast was it?
Whoever
Oh,
guesses gets a car. Well, I'll just read it. If you want to go ahead and it only took ChatGPT 2 months to reach 100 million active users. And this was from 2022 when they reached that milestone. Today, it's now over 900 million weekly active users. So the point here is that if you're not understanding how we can leverage these tools or make sure that our customers are visible in these tools, you're going to be, let's say, invisible, because the tools that consumers like us are using to find and interact with local businesses. Essentially, the takeaway here is it went from zero to mainstream faster than anything in history.
And
so go ahead, Sam.
well, I think that that's like it's a good lead into this, like, because the implication of that, Chad, is like I need to show up in ChatGPT, right? I need a strategy that's going to make me visible in AI systems. Um, but again, we have to kind of recognize that cycle and recognize that there are things that are absolutely relevant that we cannot deny, and then there are absolutely things that are probably not long lasting, probably spammy, malicious, maybe have long lasting negative effect on my brand. So where is the AI search component? Where is ultimately this zero click thing going? How is it impacting my business? Is Google taking all my business and my website is irrelevant now versus what is ultimately noise? So if we look back at the data, we see here in 2024, when people are searching in the States, less than 60% actually click on anything. If you see the little blue text in the middle there, 58.5% result in what's called a zero click search. Nobody clicks on anything after they search for something. This is in 2024. As of last month, this number is 68%. So what that kind of tells me is like, okay, like Google is not as useful as it used to be. And to level off on that, we see that Chad just mentioned it. ChatGPT went to 900 million users in like a couple of years. So I have to be showing up in AI. So everything is shifted, right? There is no point in focusing on the old, focusing on the Google, focusing on the SEO. Let's focus on AI exclusively. But if you look back at what Google did in 2025, you can see that they had the highest year-on-year growth rate since 2020, since COVID. COVID was obviously a quote-unquote good year for the internet, I suppose. But they had a really, really strong, Google had a really, really strong year last year. So what does that ultimately mean? I mean, there's like all of these conflicting signals kind of give us, like cross eyes and anxiety, figuring out like where we need to put our attention. But what it ultimately is happening is a refragmentation of how people search. And I would be willing to bet that if we just kind of polled the audience here, like, do you use AI, yes or no? And then what system do you use? ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude? Like we're going to get a distribution of results, right? It's not going to be just one response. If you click next here, Ben, we know that at a certain period of time, what we're looking at actually from left to right is over the course of time. Early on in the early days, we were on Ask Jeeves, we were on Yellow Pages, we were on Yahoo. We spent a little bit of time on Yelp for a period of time. Ultimately, everybody kind of funneled into Google. We stayed on Google for a good while. I mean, Google was revolutionary in their design and their results and their algorithms to provide relevant results. We stayed on that for a reason, the user experience, to Chad's earlier point about, about that kind of that cognitive load and sticking to what we know. We stayed on Google for a long period of time. Well, hello, OpenAI and ChatGPT, this revolutionary way of searching that is so tailored to me came about and became publicly available that refragmented everybody, right? So now I'm a Claude user. I'm an Anthropic guy. I know some people lean on Perplexity and Grok, and some others continue with ChatGPT. We are going through this evolution in how we search, and I think that we have to kind of ensure that we recognize two things. The technology is changing, but we are also changing. Right? The way that we search is evolving at an exponential rate, and therefore a strategy in response to that needs to be a little bit more holistic. Um, we've talked about it a few times. Ben actually mentioned it to me earlier today. SEO, search engine optimization, has kind of changed into this like search everywhere optimization. We have to be kind of prepared and therefore have a strategy that prepares us for a multi-platform future.
Sam, there's a really, really good question Patrick just asked us. He says, how are you justifying the expense of SEO to clients with the increase in zero-click searches? Are you focusing on AI mentions and citations or other KPIs, such as increased engagement rate? He has several clients that are feeling like SEO expenses are no longer worth it.
Well, the first question you have to answer is why is zero click going up and what does that mean? Because everybody hears zero clicks going up and that means Google's taking all my clicks and my website is useless. That's absolutely untrue. And the reason that it's untrue is if you just think about how people search. If I go into the traditional search engine, like I'm planning a trip or something like this, right? I go into Google, I type in a search query, I have 10 blue links. I click on a few of these options, I read some stuff. Maybe I go back to Google and I search again, right? That's two search queries that have occurred, right? Two searches that have occurred. And in some cases, a zero click is going to be involved in those searches. When I go to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, and I'm doing that same search to plan a trip, I'm going to ask a question, which is going to be a long form question. I'm going to provide specifics about who's going, where I want to go, what time frame I'm going to go. I'm going to provide clarifying questions after I get responses. What was formerly two searches is now becoming like 15 to 20 searches, right? So as far as where's the volume going and Google's not important anymore, the volume of search is occurring in a different platform because it's more tailored to me, right? That does not change the value in which my site ultimately brings me because I have to convert at some point. I have to turn into a customer at some point. I have to transact dollars at some point. The reason that zero click is growing is because it is available to me. The ability to tailor a conversational search is available to me. So I'm typing in searching, getting clarifying information, not clicking just yet, becoming a more qualified searcher. And then once I search for some kind of transact intent query, I convert, right? So in theory, the value of the traffic coming to your site should be going up at least marginally.
I
But
want if
yeah,
I was gonna say, Sam, I want to say the exact. I want to provide an answer. It's the exact same answer you had, but slightly different. Um, when we need, want, or wish for anything, what's the first thing we do? We ask our wives. And if they don't have the answer, what do? Historically, I had a little joke. I'd say GTS, Google that stuff, right? So we got to Google that stuff. But now, I mean, that's why they call them search engines. You go to Google and you search, but then you click into one of those blue links and you have to continue to search for the answer there, right? And
mm,
I just came up with this. I'm pretty proud of this one. AI to me is not a search engine. These AI, it's answers instantaneously,
yeah,
right?
answer
So
engine.
it
There you go.
prevents me from needing to do an additional search beyond that first search that I made.
Yeah,
And that's why it's important to have these things in place and to make sure, like, do not, stop investing in SEO. SEO is like paying for your overhead costs. It's like paying to keep your lights on. And SEO is going to help make sure that you're showing up in these answer engines, is what I'll call them.
yeah, yeah. It there's so many components to it. I do want to kind of continue on with Patrick's question because I didn't fully answer it yet. But it is creating qualified searchers, right? That's ultimately what's happening here. And As far as how you kind of report on this and such, I mean, the metrics are very similar to what they were before, but we have to kind of recognize that the landscape is changing how we interpret and place value on those metrics. So we can't look at what our metrics are, whether it's engagement rate or traffic or something else today, and say, oh, well, 3 years ago they were something different. Well, the whole landscape has changed, right? So you can't do an apples to apples comparison because it's frankly apples to oranges. But as far as the metrics go, I mean, and the tactics go, like the reason we report in SEO is because we're executing something and we need to understand the value of that.
Mhm.
Well, we have to execute those strategies because how does artificial intelligence gain its intelligence? Well, it needs context. It needs data fed to it. Actually, I don't want to steal any of Chad's thunder because he's going to speak to some of this, but that's kind of how I take what I take away from that.
I could dig that. It's important. I mean, if they stop with their SEO efforts, from our perspective, it will literally lead to them showing up less in these AI engines or anywhere on the internet because they're not putting the content out there that, you know, unfortunately, the internet is still Google's sandbox. We got to follow Google's rules to get what they want, right? And
Yeah.
so that would lead to, yeah, less clicks, but less traffic, less, overall business in general.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So when we think about what's beyond that click, and that was a good question from Patrick to talk about, like how are we, leaning into this? The shift is already here, and so we need to think about how we can continue to really bolster our strategies, shift our strategies, change the KPIs that we're looking at. What do you think of this, Chad? Tell me a little bit about how you guys are approaching this today.
Yeah, I mean we know that AI search and there's no back end to log into to understand kind of components there, but the black box isn't necessarily a completely black box if that makes sense. Because what's really exciting in terms of a lot of the studies that we've done, and we will dive into it. We did a study. I think if you want to go to the next slide, I think we could dive into it. Um, this one and the next one. We did a study of about 17 million citations across all four major models. The link, we'll share the link to this report, and I can also toss it in the chat. Actually, we just redid this analysis, and now it's 155 million citations across all four models. Yext powers a little over 3 million businesses across the globe, so we can track actually how they're performing in search, both traditionally and within all four major AI models. We can track the citations, and we can actually track who the competitors are and what they're actually doing. We'll get more to that later, but really exciting, aspects there. But one of the things to really think about, and we had mentioned it earlier, is that all of these models do behave a little differently. But what we need to kind of separate is there is a lot of visibility or AI visibility tools that are more geared towards the brand, right? And that's more of like a discovery kind of component. Now, if you're a CMO of a large company, having that brand kind of understanding is definitely important. But in our ecosystem, working with local, small and medium-sized businesses, all of the major models take into as if you're searching through the chat or through the search feature, they take in as the user, your location automatically. You actually have to tell them to turn that off. So what is interesting and opportunistic for us and individuals in this community, if you will, we're actually the best ones tasked to kind of solve this, is that we did track for local kind of inquiries, intents, and prompts within all four major models. Over 80, it's actually around 86% of the citations we tracked, and we'll get more into this in a second, are actually controllable. And the reason they're controllable is because of that structured kind of nature there. But I think really quickly, I'll turn it to Sam just to talk about and again, the great thing here is we always say like the user or the consumer, that's really us. Like when I look for things, I don't look for, type surfboard. I look for best surf shop, near me in Fairhaven. Um, but we're seeing over time, and that's been changing rapidly, is that we're getting longer within the questions that we ask, and we're moving to more of a conversational component. And then back to Patrick's point, and then I'll turn it to Sam to kind of go through this, is that, we kind of have to think about not getting clicks maybe to the website or ranking high It's about being cited most often, being visible for the queries and prompts that consumers are actually asking for you. And you can actually take this as an exercise, go into your LLM of choice and do these searches. I'm sure you are, but you also may not be. And ask it, where are you getting this information from? What is most important? Maybe even doing that live with one of your customers, searching for their business, maybe asking a series of like branded or unbranded or objective or like subjective questions, and allow the LLM to actually tell you what consumers ask when it's in this category, and then where are you actually getting this information from. So the point here
Yeah.
is
And
really that we are in a lot more control of the citations that LLMs are using to return a business as an answer to someone's query.
and Chad's also alluding to I mean, not just a study, but also the actionable data that gives you deep insight into how you're showing up, how you are perceived, and then ultimately actions that need to be taken off of that. But he's also speaking to how it's not just the tech that's changing, guys. It's you. It's the searcher. It's the people that are inputting the prompts and the search queries. I had mentioned it before, but like in traditional search, you might have two searches that land in 5 to 10 clicks, right? I search for something, I click, 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 and then I search for something else and I click a few more times. Now with AI search, you might have 16 searches that may end in one click. Now that click would be much more highly qualified and transactional, like lower funnel. But we have to kind of understand that the search query itself is changing. If you could hit back one, then I want to show. So this is kind of the old version of how an SEO would think about identifying keywords, and we went from the broad and general T-shirts all the way down to the specific, like long sleeve, what have you, or blue American Apparel T-shirt. If you click forward there, Ben, so the way in which we search is again is we're getting more towards this like oftentimes query based long form paragraph. I mean, I'm sure my Claude is tired of me, just blabbering at it all day. But the point is that you can break down, just like we have historically as SEOs, you can break down a query to understand not just search intent, but reference as well. Like and basically replicate how an AI is trying to understand a query. So this gives you some examples. We've got who is the best orthodontist in Portland, Oregon that accepts Cigna insurance and offers Invisalign treatment. Well, each of the components of this query allude to a data source that engine is going to have to reference in order to provide the most relevant search results of all. Orthodontist is kind of categorical. Well, that could be an orthodontist here. It could be an orthodontist in New Orleans. It could be all orthodontists in the United States. Well, I need the best ones. Okay, so now I'm looking at reviews, the top rated ones, and I need them to be in Portland, Oregon. Now I'm narrowing down much, much more considerably. And I have to look at the website in order to ensure that they have Cigna and they offer Invisalign treatment. And now we've narrowed down into a much, much smaller bucket. So if a brand is starving an engine, whether that's Google or ChatGPT or the like, of this information, then why would they even look at you? Right. So as a brand, we have to think about what is happening between the phases of first touch. Somebody has just reached out to me, gave me a phone call, filled out a form on my website, messaged me on Facebook or Instagram, etc., all the way through to transaction of dollars. Because in those phases are the differentiators that searchers are looking for now, right? I want to make sure that I'm talking to the exact right person that I want to. I want to engage with somebody that I can relate with, and I want nothing else. Well, AI offers me the opportunity to find that, and we need to make sure as brands we align to it.
Absolutely. Chad, I know
And
we added. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, and then just to kind of add color, to Sam's breakdown of a query that holds a lot of intent that any orthodontist that offers those services would want to be discoverable for immediately. Let's not think about like ranking number one or two, but just being kind of visible for the things that they care about. And it all comes through kind of at Yext, we kind of categorize the citations that we see within all four kind of the four major LLMs across these actually four categories that you see here. And we also kind of align them to how much control that you have. So in that query, Sam had shown previously, you can see that in order for, let's say, Google or Gemini or Perplexity or ChatGPT or Claude to answer that question, it needs to be grounded in some sort of truth. And how do you build kind of confidence in anything? I mean, if I were in this room with all of us here, and let's say we're all from New York City, and I were to ask you guys, and let's pretend I'm not from the area, like what's the best sushi restaurant, in downtown Manhattan? If Ben and Sam and Patrick and Gina and everyone here gave me, oh, you have to go to Bond Sushi, it's the best. Like, I'm going to be pretty confident in going to that. But if you all gave me different answers that wasn't grounded in any sort of consistent truth, I'm probably maybe going to be like, I'm actually not going to do sushi. I might just go to get pizza or something. So the point I'm making is that how we need to think about helping our customers be visible kind of in this era of AI overviews and of course within AI search is making sure that their data about the business is not only consistent and complete, spending time with your customers, understanding everything from what they offer to what promos they have to what specials they have on Wednesday to the types of insurances they accept. Writing good, useful content. A lot of those helpful updates that we saw in previous algorithmic updates for Google search definitely still apply. We kind of have to put on, like, we're still SEOs, but we kind of need to put on our data science hat here when we want to figure out how
Yeah.
to actually drive visibility. And like the only way for a data scientist to confirm, you can't necessarily always confirm truth, but you can go through the scientific method of kind of understanding, well, okay, where is this data coming from? Is that source authoritative? Is it kind of consistent everywhere that it's also cited? Um, is it frequently updated? I think we have to realize where we are today that real-time information will trump not real-time information every single time. Um, but then also like the recency, how frequently is that data is that updated? And the
Yeah.
great part about here, and I mentioned earlier, is that when we did this study of citations across all major LLMs, up to 86% of the sources that were cited were in either full or some sort of control to the business. So just going from left to right, your website, you have full control. Unless your IT team absolutely sucks, you have full control of your website, right? And I also think it's important to note that websites aren't dead. Now, what I do have to tell you, all of you agency owners, unfortunately, is they don't care the hex coding, how pretty it is, the layout, that there's a photo of the owner in the store. That stuff's really maybe important to the business owner, but to LLMs, it's not. I think we have to think about that websites are not less important. I would actually argue they are more important now than ever. And think about your website that you're sourcing or building or supporting for your customer as a consistent conveyor belt of structured knowledge to a conversational interface of choice for a consumer. That's a long-winded thing of saying make sure that the website is the most information you could possibly control. Make sure it's accurate, make sure it's consistent, make sure it's updated frequently. So you have full control of your website. Your listings, which is one of the main things that we partner with AdCellerant with to bring that solution to market. I'm sure you're all familiar. Those are the direct, kind of APIs to, Google and Facebook and OpenAI and Apple and MapQuest. Believe it or not, is actually one of the highest cited citations in local searches across all four major LLMs. You remember when we were like printing out MapQuest directions and putting it on
Oh
the
yeah.
sheet? Like that was
Good old
awesome.
days.
You guys
Um, but
anymore?
if you have to think about it, like it's a phenomenal structured database, and that fits into listings. I also think listings is a terrible name for it. We have to think about this as data distribution because this is the means of which you can input, and you have a lot of control, not 100% control, because there are some maybe local directories or hyper local directories that you might not have full control of, but generally they're pretty controllable. But that's the tool that you can leverage to drive consistent, deep, relevant information about your customers to give LLMs kind of that grounded truth in the data. And then as we move through, your reviews in social, you have some sort of control, a little bit less. And then, news and forums, you almost have no control. I'm sure if we were in a room and I asked everyone to raise their hand, how much do you think Reddit is important for AI overviews and for AI search? Everyone's going to be like, oh, it's everything. Like, I think Reddit came in really hot, but again, that's kind of more from like the brand or discovery layer. If I go to Google
Yeah.
or LLM and I search for where's the best place, to get a burrito near me, I'm not gonna, I might, but I probably will not get a Reddit article. I'm gonna get a GBP listing if I'm in Gemini, or I might get a Yelp review if I'm in OpenAI, for example. So this is how we categorize, the four kind of major components of a business's digital presence, and then what kind of control you have, across it. If you want to go to the next slide, this is kind of what we actually found. Now, we'll send the link to this study. In Q4 of last year, we studied 17 million citations across millions of businesses. We've actually updated this. So the recent study is now across 155 million citations across over 3 million businesses across the planet. So again, putting on that data science hat, like how do you get a large population of data, control the truth of where it's coming from, and then find kind of commonalities or consistencies across that? Regardless, this is all four major models compiled together. But as you can see, the website and listings, the things that you have the most control of, are what is actually being cited mostly within LLMs. And I'll just end with the component like MapQuest. Like, that was the last time you went to a MapQuest site? Probably not, but it's heavily, heavily cited for local searches across all four major LLMs. That information is in the research paper. Because these sites, whether it's your website or just focusing on the listings component, the reason why AI loves listings, or this data distribution tool, if you will, is because it's a phenomenal source of structured information. And AI loves
Yeah.
structured data simply because of the compute costs. If I were to submit to, Claude, here's 9 paragraphs on why I love the University of Massachusetts, versus giving it just one line that says, I went to UMass Amherst, that gives AI all of the knowledge and the intent it needs to answer questions about things that I might ask, because, of course, AI has memory, which is a huge game changer. But that drives compute costs way down. So AI wants to crawl simple, structured data sites, and that's why listings or the data distribution component is so critical, kind of in this, SEO, search experience, or search everywhere, optimization strategy. Going back to Patrick's, question, but as I mentioned, I think we should call it search everywhere, or search experience optimization, because then all of us SEOs don't have to, change the acronym in all of our t-shirts from all the conferences we go to.
I've got so many of those t-shirts.
Yeah, of course.
So when we think about this, and you guys are really leaning into this, especially when we talk about those, I mean, the directories, the websites, the listings, and this is where the true battleground is for local in particular, right? Like, I think a lot of different, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, they're sitting here thinking, I can't compete with these bigger brands. I can't compete with the guys that got deeper products, or excuse me,
Yeah.
deep pockets, if I could say it. But this is truly where they can help themselves stand up, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg, right?
Yeah.
So, Sam, tell me a little bit more about how we've created this great place to, help SMBs truly battle it out with the bigger brands and continue to find ways to win.
I think that's a total misconception. Like this, like AI is taking over, and all the big brands are all going to show up because they've got the budgets, and I can't. I'm just going to be like the little guy, and it's useless for me to pay attention anymore. I think that is absolute BS, and I think it is for two reasons. Again, I think the technology is still in its infancy, and maybe when everybody started studying it and conducting their studies, a year, 2 years ago, that maybe that was the case. Bigger brands were showing up more prominently. That's probably just because those technologies, the AI technologies, saw a bigger presence from them. Well, bigger budgets means bigger presence. But again, with the users changing and with the engines themselves that are inevitably going to change, I think that the smaller brands, the Main Street businesses, the local battlegrounds, if you as you have here, is 100% relevant, because me and my specificity and my wanting to work with local businesses as opposed to large franchises or people that, execute a project in a certain way or within a certain price point, or speak a certain language or whatever that characteristic may be, I can now find them, right? And I being the masses of searches, we are preferential people and preferential beings, and AI enables that. So 100% agree that the local battleground is the future, and I think that, again, the reason why we partner with the X is that they have done a good job of enabling that data, and enabling small businesses to kind of capture that data and turn it into some type of actionable insight, hence Scout. But I won't steal Chad's thunder.
No, I think it's a perfect example. We want to make sure that we're not only, talking about, the industry and what we're seeing, and we're not just admiring the problem or the opportunity. We're giving, tangible insights and ways to really fill that gap. So, in partnership with AdCellerant, kind of bringing this to all of you agencies that work closely with AdCellerant, is access, of course, to our Scout product. What Scout will do is, like everything that we're talking about. This helps you actually see it and visualize it for your customers. You can show their citation share, what citations are actually driving their visibility within all major LLMs, as well as how they're performing in traditional search, like within Google. You can see their visibility, ranking and score by individual models. You can understand the exact gap, like, hey, these 10 competitors, 1 mile in your, or these 10 competitors in your market, you have 10 fewer reviews than them. This is the ways that you can fill the gap. So as I'd mentioned, as you explore for AI visibility tools that are definitely growing in the market exceptionally fast, is that outside of what we're doing with AdCellerant and Scout, what I've just noticed is that all of these products are really just admiring the problem, showing you that you're not visible, or telling you maybe that there are other prompts that you're not, that your customers or your competitors, sorry, are visible for and you're not, but not giving you then the tools to actually solve that. And that's where Scout, through AdCellerant, is fundamentally different. Is one, we're measuring this from the local consumer up, right? So we're taking location and intent and every competitor within your market into consideration when providing what you should focus on, and then being able to track over time how that's actually improving my customers' rank within Google or general visibility within all major LLMs.
Cool. And then Patrick asked another good question about making sure that there's facts included in here and what that does to the strategy. Sam, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so how important is having FAQs with schema markup on websites now that Google has sunsetted GBP FAQs? They also sunsetted FAQ-rich snippets. Are AI models looking to those to answer questions about a brand or subject? That has been part of my strategy recently, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on effectiveness of adding schema markup. Uh, so yeah, the argument can be made that FAQ schema is not as powerful as it was a month ago, um, because of the things that we've just said. It's been sunset in GBP. GBP is now relying on Gemini to provide ask and answer kind of experience. Similarly, rich snippets is not available in Google search results. So does that mean that it's less important? Absolutely not. I mean, structured data and schema is a tool that provides clarity and context. If you don't provide clarity and context to the search engine, they're not going to sit there and try to figure you out, right? Like, oh, does this website have the answer to this question on it? I wish I could, like, I'm just going to pine through all of it until I find it. Absolutely not. They're going to go to the site that has the answer, and they're going to cite that one. So FAQ schema in any capacity, not just FAQs, is absolutely required. And because Chad had mentioned something earlier about like GPU compute and these different kinds of things. That's a whole nother webinar podcast that we could do. These search engines, the long and short of it is these search engines want easy to access information very quickly. So schema is a way of going about doing that one way.
You know what? This is a great kind of segue into this because the bottom line that we have listed here is that we can't optimize for single AI channels. We can't optimize for, just one piece of schema. We can't optimize off one piece of content. There has to be a healthy balance between all the different things that you're working on, whether it's the health of your website, whether it's the viewability and crawlability of your website, whether it's the accuracy of your listings, even what is showing up within social and reviews and things like that. It's everything. We have to take full advantage of all those things. And so that's what we're trying to do and what we've actually been really great at accomplishing for our partners and agency customers like you guys. So I want to ask one more poll real quick, and I'm not going to roll a poll out to the whole team here or to the whole audience, but if we think about these things, which of these search channels do we believe represents the biggest missed opportunity right now for types of local clients if you're thinking about like restaurants, local service businesses, things like that? Is it the AI search? Is it the GBPs? Is it social discoveries like on Instagram or TikTok? Or is it review management? Is that something that's happening there? Sam, give me a quick, 30, 60-second answer on that one from your perspective.
I mean, I always go to like the data set item. So I would argue like Google Business Profile, local listings, review mat, a little bit of B, a little bit of D, because I think that AI search answer A is referencing those sources.
Absolutely. So, for what I just heard you say is that you're actually focusing on the things that you can control more of, but then we obviously can't just let the pieces that we can't control, we have less control, like the review management. Like we still need those things. We still gotta, feed the sand in through the cracks of that jar of marbles when it comes to things that we can't control. So, overall, when you're building that ROI of trust with your customers, obviously lead generation is going to be a big part of that. The speed to helping them win, getting them those answers instantaneously, showing up with these answer engines, these AI engines, and then driving to a quicker conversion so that they can, get the business from those people who are searching for them is going to be the best bet possible. So make sure you have that technical readiness. Those AI filters that you can put into place where it's with ChatGPT and Perplexity, where they're filtering for quality, recommending these businesses. Make sure you have a solid structure put in place there. And then make sure you have that consistency across all that structured data as well, because that is boosting your impressions and visibility through these searches by just 21% in a short amount of time, less than 2.5 months there, right? So, Chad, overall, three top priorities when you're thinking about AI and search, where this is headed to, and then once you finish this, we'll hand it off to Sam to bring her home for us.
Yeah, I think this ties into the three, quickest things that you can do for your customers to make sure, they're as visible or putting their best foot forward. And one is, yep, it's definitely that NAP consistency, which is kind of the legacy component of what we've always seen in listings. But if you take one thing away from that, don't just focus on listings as that thing that builds that NAP consistency for that legacy kind of SEO motion. Leverage listings as a key data distribution that not only publishes who they are, when they're open, and
How to
yeah, who they
contact
are,
you.
where they're open, and how to actually reach them. But all the facts about the business, what specials they offer, the types of insurances that they accept, what kind of events they host on certain days, for example. That's really going to be the one of the easiest things to do, and one of the things that you can have the most control over. The second, definitely your reputation. I don't think this is a new trend, and I think what's great, maybe tying back Patrick, who's been our, I think our most biggest advocate so far in terms of asking great questions. Um, the reputation component is absolutely huge, and a lot of the tactics that we have known from traditional SEO are still carrying over into kind of the AI search realm, right? Having good listings, having a strong reputation, being active in social, and there's so many great tools that can help you for your clients automate this, have an agentic flow to it. So you're just having conversations with how they've grown their business, have gotten more phone calls, have sat more individuals, flipped more tables, done more roofs. You kind of get the picture. And then the last one, I guess, to kind of articulate machine readability, that's where, and I had responded in the chat, that's where like goes back to my point, like your website, local pages that you can build off your site to kind of show intent or promotions or event. That's really your conveyor belt of structured information to all of these LLMs to kind of build that understanding, that credibility, in you as a business. So that's where I would focus. So structuring your data across your pages and local pages, managing and improving your online reputation, responding to these reviews as well, and then making sure you have the most consistent, accurate, and deep information about your client's business, across the internet and our listings, reviews, and pages products that we work with AdCellerant through can help you really tackle that very quickly and efficiently.
So those are three top priorities that we would encourage all of you to take full advantage of, and we could definitely help make sure that you scale that appropriately through the partnership with AdCellerant and Yext and how we're doing these things. So Sam, while we're doing those things, how does this prepare us for what's to come in the next 18 months, 24 months, things like that?
Yeah, I mean the way that we've looked at search historically is absolutely changing, and I think that if you're kind of looking at it the exact same way and asking the question of, well, why have all my good metrics gone and turned into bad metrics? You might be asking it from the wrong angle. I think that we have to make sure that we interpret the data very properly and understand that the landscape is changing. The 10 blue links, for instance, and clicks from those is not always the expectation. Somebody had mentioned citations and mentions in AI systems earlier on, and I think that that's absolutely relevant. There are going to be engagement metrics that we can focus on. We still absolutely need to focus on conversions and valuable actions within the website. But I think that if you're looking at your data today and saying all is doom and gloom, I would caveat that with you might be looking at it wrong.
Yeah. Overall, from what I see, guys, is, we need to make sure we control what we control, make sure that we have the data integrity and structured data integrity that we need, build the trust with your customers, with those, customers you've had before and with future customers, and then just make sure you create that authority for yourselves through some of these things. We had some great questions throughout. I know we're just a couple minutes past. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out to myself, to Sam. If you want to connect with Chad, we can help facilitate that as well. But thank you so much for all the engagement, the great questions today. I really enjoyed it. Chad and Sam, both of you have definitely earned your wings for today. I appreciate that big time. So I'll look forward to the next time we all get together and hope you all have a wonderful 4th of July holiday.
Absolutely. Great catching up with you guys. I'll talk to you very soon. Thanks to everybody who listened in as well.
Thanks, so take care.